I'm at war with a Facebook page, more specifically a refinishing Facebook page. They've told me that sanding doesn't work to strip. More specifically, they said it's a bad idea to sand strip and I needed to use stripper first. Well, I've done both and I've done this for a number of years and I'm convinced that sanding is actually quicker and more effective if you know what you're doing. So, to prove myself right, I've got a dresser with 4 drawers, all of them painted with the same exact paint, and we are going to try 4 different methods of stripping each one to try to figure out the most effective way to strip a dresser and prove me right with a Facebook group that probably doesn't even know I exist. What strips the fastest? We're going to use a stripper, we're going to use a sander, we're going to use a heat gun, and we are going to use a scraper. And between those 4 things, I'm going to have a stopwatch, same dresser, same amount of paint, and I'm going to see what strips paint the best. So let's get to that. And if you want to see the full thing actually refinished, I'm doing a separate video on the full refinish of this guy and how much I paid and everything. All right, for this first video, I'm going to use this DeWalt sander, which is very standard. I'm switching it out. Here's my, oh gosh, I'm trying to do this in a crowded space. Here's my stopwatch. Cool, so here's my stopwatch. At 0, I'll start it when I start. But I'm starting with 120 grit, which is the lowest I'm comfortable with going to strip paint on a dresser with veneer. And so we'll see. This is a very dangerous way to do it in the sense you could harm the stuff underneath it more than stripping would. But we're starting with this and we'll see how long it takes. I think that sanding it, you have to sand everything at the end anyways. So I think sanding it is going to be a better use of our time, but I could be wrong. Starting now. All right, now that that's done, we're gonna go down to a 220 grit now that most of the paint, if not all of the paint, is stripped off this thing. That is totally stripped, as you can see. And sanded down in the end. We're gonna have to sand everything down at the end anyways. So that took me a grand total of 7 minutes and 44 seconds for one drawer. So that's the time to beat on all the other ones. And I'm not doing the tops with I'm not timing the tops or the bottom. I'm gonna finish these out for the actual dresser, but for the purposes of this video, we're not doing those. All right, I got a heat gun here and a scraper. My time will start now. It would actually be going so much faster if I didn't fatigue. Like genuinely, we're in minute 8 now. It genuinely is a 0 out of 10. All right, screw it. I'm just gonna try to finish the rest with the sander and see what that even gets me. Oh man. It's 1440. So nearly double the time, and I did the second half like with the sander. So huge fail. Don't use a heat gun. They suck. All right, this is where I am starting to scrape, and I'm doing a voiceover because my microphone died and I didn't realize it while recording. So you're getting a nice little voiceover from me here. Let's just skip to the scraping, and I'll tell you why this didn't go the way I wanted it to either. All right, we'll just pretend I'm making scrape. Making sounds for you guys. No, this, the problem is I had to try to brace myself against the actual piece. And eventually I think I ended up like clamping it down here. But the issue is that this paint didn't come up very well. And it's going to be different based on what kind of paint you're taking off, how well they prepped the surface, and a million other things. But this, I went as hard and as quick as I could to try to beat the time that I had with the other things, because I really am trying my best on each to beat the time. And the paint really didn't want to come up from scraping, and I had to go harder than I wanted to. So scraping can be a really effective way to strip flat surfaces that just have finish on them, especially with like vintage or antique pieces, and you're not putting a lot of pressure on like I'm doing here. But eventually I just said, this is all that I can scrape off. My triceps and shoulder got very sore very quick with the amount of pressure I was putting on, and I decided to just hit up the orbital sander. So this is what that looks like. And we ended up with almost 12 minutes there, 11:59. So not as effective as sanding, but more effective than the heat gun. Again, it would have just been faster had I sanded, and I got that scrape in the end. So I'm gonna have to take a wet cloth later and actually fix that with an iron. So overall, this is, I'd say, about as effective as the heat gun, but I wouldn't recommend either for paint. All right, this is the stripper. This is just a stripper I got from Home Depot, and you can get it at Lowe's, pretty much any hardware store. It's your standard paint stripper. I'm covering it with some plastic wrap so it can really like trap in those fumes into the paint. And you need to have a little bit of insulation when you do this, and or wear a mask. But I would not consult me on health matters. Now this is cutting through it like butter. Like I thought I was gonna have to wait like 10-20 minutes for this to work. And I don't know if that's because of the little prep they did with the chalk paint, or I could not tell you exactly why. On this day, the stripper worked in literally 2.5 minutes. I could start scraping it off. And it would have been faster, if I'm being honest with you, on the actual dresser itself, because that's easier to put some weight behind and scrape. So right after I'm done scraping everything that's easy to come off, I sanded it, and look at that. We are actually 6.5 seconds behind the sander. And so it's essentially the same amount of time to strip as it is to sand. And it depends on the sander, and it depends on a few other things. But today, it was about the same amount of time. All right, guys, if you want to see the full video on that dresser, refinishing what I bought it for, spoiler alert, I bought it for 15 bucks. If you want to see the full video, I'm going to upload that later. And then I'm also going to upload a video of me, which I'm in the process of, redoing that garage into a studio to make these videos a lot more crisp. I'll get professional lighting. It's going to look better. But in the meantime, I'm still trying to publish videos out here, so I don't just stop with the videos.